The trade rumors are swirling in the NFL, and there's some real traction surrounding some big names. We got thoughts to share today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who make Locked On NFL Scouting your first listen every single day. We appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started.
Joseph, I hope you're enjoying the fireworks from afar that are happening already in Indianapolis.
They're coming, right? We got rumors swirling, Kyle, and I'm inclined to believe some of this.
This is exactly what we said earlier in the week. We said, I don't give a lick about what so-and-so is going to do with the second overall pick. But you get NFL rumors, you get NFL player transactional rumors, deadline spur action. Franchise tag deadlines next week. League calendar year starts in 2. Let's go.
Things are happening. I would love to start this conversation with L'Jarius Sneed, the cornerback from the Kansas City Chiefs. We've kind of talked a lot about the Chiefs and the dynamics of their offseason and the big names of Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed. And because of Chris Jones's contract, the tag doesn't really make a lot of sense for him. You can only apply the tag to one player. You looked at L'Jarius Sneed as that logical player to tag, but you certainly got some messaging yesterday that they're open to trading away L'Jarius Sneed. And before we talk about that, I'd like to bring up the dynamics of the Kansas City Chiefs. And because you've been to 4 of the last 5 Super Bowls, you've won 3 of the last 5 Super Bowls, the amount of freedom that gives that front office to operate with, to really do whatever they want. You want to trade away Tyreek Hill? Go right ahead, right? Like there's so much freedom in that. Like L'Jarius Sneed, star young corner, maybe the most attractive young corner in the league, expiring contract, tag, you're open to trading him. Like there's got to be so much freedom that comes with the success that they've had. And one thing that's been characteristic of their dynasty is it's about Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Chris Jones, and they're willing to reset every other thing. Like,
pay your pillars. Pay your pillars.
It's nice to have 3 Hall of Famers as your pillars, but like they fully get that nothing else matters. They have their pillars. They're not going to overpay for anything else, even though they have some flexibility. And Brett Veach just has so much freedom in how he can operate this football team because of the success that he can point to.
Well, and I think this also, they have a type at corner, right? They have frequently gone after a type with Jalen Watson and Joshua Williams and L'Jarius Sneed, and those are all day 3 picks as really long physical corners the last, 4 years in the draft?
Yeah.
You also have a first-round pick in Trent McDuffie that's entering into his 3rd-year season, who's not the same style of corner. But I think this probably bodes really well for Trent McDuffie getting paid a significant amount. And he's a stud, too. He's a stud in his own right. But if they're going to it's a fascinating conversation. Do you let the guy that can move around a little bit more and is maybe, when you have 3 corners on the field, the nickel player? Do you pay that guy? Do you pay that guy because the ceiling of paying that guy is different than paying the outside only guy? I'm sure it bodes well for what they think of both Joshua Williams and Trent and Jalen Watson, who were 2022 draft picks too.
They platoon. Yeah, they platoon.
Yeah. But for one of them for them to have the confidence that one of those guys is no longer going to platoon and step in for L'Jarius Sneed, and if in a hypothetical tag and trade situation, it's really fascinating stuff.
The Kansas City Chiefs, fascinating. Any other team, right, would be like, well, we've had success. We want to maintain as much as we can, right? We want as much of that team back as we can. The Kansas City Chiefs say, as long as we got Mahomes, Kelsey, and Jones, we'll fill in the rest. And it helps when you get the continuous hits that they have in the draft, like Creed Humphrey, Nick Bolton, 2nd-round pick, Stray Smith, 6th-round, what was Sneed, a 3rd or a 4th-round pick? You talk about Williams was his day 3 pick. Mike Dana, a 6th-round pick. Like, as long as you can keep doing that, you can trade away star players and not think twice about it. And I mean, what would the return for L'Jarius Sneed be? And here's, we're going to talk about other players that could be traded, and I'm sure we'll speculate on returns. I can never get out of my head that Jamal Adams went for 2 first-round picks whenever I think about trade compensation in the NFL. And I'm sure maybe the league looks at that as a one-off, but boy, oh boy, do I think that if there's a player that could push for 2 first-round picks, might be L'Jarius Sneed.
I don't think so.
Man, you squashed that right away.
I mean, Tyreek. I think Tyreek Hill compensation's probably there's a 1, a 2. Is there 4 in there?
Yeah, but do you get rid of the change, right? Like there was some change there in that the 1 plus all the other stuff, including a 2 first-round picks, just clean, get it done. Especially if your team that's picking maybe towards the back half traditionally.
I wouldn't. I'm not giving you 2 1s for any non-quarterback.
I would agree with you. But Jamal Adams went for 2 1s.
Yeah, but as you said, probably more of a one-off. And guess how that deal ended? Horribly for Seattle.
Anybody with the brain could have told you that.
Yeah, but what did Jalen Ramsey get traded for the first time?
2 1s
to the Rams.
Yeah.
All right, let me get the official. I'm gonna float around, produce this thing, and get the official.
First-round picks in 2021 and a 4th-round pick in 2021. 2 1s and a 4 for Ramsey.
I guess the difference there is they didn't have to give him the new contract. They ended up giving him one, but he didn't have, like, he came to LA not in like need of it. Not on the franchise tag. I don't know. My offer would be a 1, a 2, and a day 3 pick.
You have teams that should be doing this.
Well, you just went through a whole bunch of teams in the back. You know who should do this? They would never do it because of how their modus operandus. Pittsburgh should absolutely do this.
Right. They won't.
There'd be a home run ad for them at corner.
My hang up with Pittsburgh is I don't like your quarterback situation, and I'm not trading away my premium draft picks to not solve my quarterback position.
Well, like, I don't think they're going to address quarterback. I don't think they're going to address quarterback anyway.
Right. It's going to be Kenny Pickett and Ryan Tannehill, right? Can we fast forward? That's what it's going to be. And if that's the world I'm going to live in, I don't know. Like, to me, I'm going to be a mediocre team in the AFC at best, and it's pointless to trade away premium assets for L'Jarius Sneed.
Okay, but that's if you gave the 1 and the 2 this year, you're right back to having assets again next year. It's not like you're mortgaging your future assets, and you're acquiring a player who's going to be 27 years old this year. You get a 3-4 year runway.
Cincinnati would never do it either.
Yeah, and you know who would never trade L'Jarius Sneed to Cincinnati?
You wouldn't. Yeah, you wouldn't. Right. Well, they got the Orlando Brown flipping, flopping. You know what I mean? You never know there.
Let's see. How about in the NFC? I'm sure they'd love to send him to an NFC team.
Is San Francisco?
I don't think they'd send him there either.
Okay. Who's the other contenders? Philly, Dallas, Minnesota? Assuming Kirk Cousins is back.
The Rams.
The Rams, right? We know this is how they operate.
That might be my favorite one. They got all the cap space in the world because they got all UDFAs and day 3 picks on that roster now because they reset the cap.
If I'm Kansas City, I'm just going to tag him and enjoy his services this year and probably go win another Super Bowl. But, Brett Veach.
Okay, but if you do that, now you're signing yourself up to not get return for him. You have to make the decision uncomfortably early if you're going to get compensation for the player.
Then sign him to a 4-year, $100 million contract to move on with your life.
They don't want to do that.
Well,
they don't have to do that.
When you've won 3 of the last 5 Super Bowls and have the outlook to do that again over the next 5 years, as long as you got 15, does it matter? Does it matter? All right, we're going to talk about some other players that could be traded. Brian Burns, T. Higgins coming up here in the next block, so be sure to stick with us. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. You can bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. And, look, this isn't Locked On Pacers, although we turned into a little bit of a mini episode of Locked On Pacers yesterday. But look, whatever action you want to get into, whether it's the NBA, NHL, football's futures, FanDuel has it for you, and this deal is incredible. Again, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Have you ever considered what you would do if you had an extra hour in your day? Would you exercise, read, spend time with friends, maybe catch up on some sleep? A lot of us spend our lives wishing we had more time. The question is, time for what? If time was unlimited, how would you use it? The best way to squeeze that special thing into your schedule is to know what's important to you and make it a priority. Therapy can help you find out what matters most to you so you can do more of it. Therapy is helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you do is fill out a brief questionnaire. That'll get you matched with a licensed therapist. You can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
But the trade winds are not just blowing for L'Jarius Sneed. You want to talk Brian Burns?
We got the wind. We got the burn. Yeah.
Jeez.
Wow. That was so bad. You had a banger of a dad joke this past weekend. Oh man, what was it? Something about eggs. I can't remember.
I will not repeat it.
Yeah.
I do have one for you now.
All right.
Why should you never brush your teeth with your left hand?
I don't know, Kyle.
Because a toothbrush is better.
It's good.
That one came courtesy of Wade Phillips on Twitter.
Wade Phillips, who's whenever we've had the conversation, if you could sit down with a former coach or whatever, like, and have lunch with him, I always pick Wade Phillips, and that's why. That's another reason
Son
why.
of bum, baby.
That's a quality one, man. Way to bring it today. All right, Brian Burns, Carolina Panthers, pass rusher. No idea why this is a complicated situation at all. They drafted him. He's become an impact pass rusher. He's young. Man, I feel like he's part of your answer. He's, he's part of the path forward in Carolina. He's young enough for you to still be able to maximize his prime. And you're always going to remember that last year the Rams offered 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns, and you're always going to remember that they didn't take it. And here we are. There's no extension. There's rumors that he could be traded. And this is a really attractive young pass rusher that shouldn't be in this position, but here we are.
Yeah. This is a team just based off of what they've already declined for Brian Burns. The amount of egg that is going to sit on this team's face if they do not retain Brian Burns and ultimately collect less than what has been widely publicly reported was the offer for him in the first place from the Rams. For what? You knew your team was not going to be competitive when you were getting these offers for Brian Burns. So I think there's a lot of pressure on Carolina to figure it out and make it work. And to the credit of Brian Burns, I would totally be taking advantage of that and say, well, I'm worth more than 2 first-round picks. You told the whole world that. Mm-hmm. So what do you want me to play for 18? Because that's your perceived value of me. And that's an ancillary number that I just threw out as an example. I'm not saying that's what the offer is.
I feel like there would be a number of teams that would love to have Brian Burns, especially when you consider this edge class. I don't see elite talent. I see some attractive players, but when you're like edge one is potentially like Dallas Turner or Jared Verse, who I think are good prospects, but not great prospects. I think you saying to yourself, well, let's just take on Brian Burns instead of using our first round pick on one of those players. And a team that I keep coming back to as a team that I think should be interested in trading draft picks for players, it's the Arizona Cardinals, who are loaded with cap space. They're loaded with draft capital. They have pick 4. We're not talking about that pick, but 27, 35, 66, 71, 90, 105. I mean, come on, man. Like, let's turn that into some veterans to round out this roster where we do have a quarterback that we're committed to, as they remind us on social media yesterday. Whatever that was for. Not really sure why the Cardinals continue to find themselves in that position. But if you're Arizona, would you not give up pick 27 for Brian Burns and give Jonathan Gannon a legit pass rusher to start building this defense?
Yeah. And then I think the other thing about that is you look at it from Carolina's side of things. They've needed wide receiver. It's a great wide receiver class.
Yeah.
They would really benefit, I think, from getting a pick. So there's ways in which it can make sense from both sides. And I like Arizona as a call out. But again, the knowledge of what you passed creates so much pressure to try to, I guess, if you're going to do it, break even. And I don't know that Brian Burns' market right now dictates that he would get 2 first-round picks like he was offered from the Rams.
I don't think 27 alone gets it done. It's probably 27 and 71, 27 and 90, something like that, is what I'd be fishing for. But I don't know, man. You could just – if you're Carolina, what the heck does your pass rush look like without Brian Burns, dude?
Right.
Like,
because you got Gross Matos and Higgins are expiring contract. Yeah. It's a brand new room.
The dude, DJ Johnson? we got a lot to figure out here. I mean, there's a lot of free agents out there but again, Brian Burns is a young star pass rusher. Just keep him.
Yeah, it's a uncomfortable intersection for them to be in for sure.
And their lack of honesty throughout the last 4 or 5 years, and I don't think Dan Morgan doesn't deserve to pay for those sins as a new GM of the Carolina Panthers, but this 3-year stretch of not being real puts us in this spot. T. Higgins, Cincinnati Bengals. Yeah. Some messaging from Duke Tobin kind of leads you to believe that this could be a possibility. They've come out and said, look, we're at our best when we have T. Higgins, but I don't think either one of us would be surprised if they wind up finding a partner here. And we continue to look at the back of this first round, and you find a lot of different wide receiver needy spots. It's just a matter of, well, do you want to send that to Cincy for T. Higgins or take the unknown young rookie player?
Right. And I think the nice thing about Joe Burrow as the quarterback in this spot to make this decision is he's shown that he can create chemistry and timing with different stylistic wide receivers. But this offense goes in large part because of the freakish athleticism that they have on the outside there. So I think that gives you a certain type of receiver. A.D. Mitchell from Texas, like his size and ball skills, and the vertical speed that he does have, I think is a really viable player who can fit into a lot of the same things that T. Higgins does. There's an LSU wide receiver that's big-bodied and has some body control, and wins vertically down the field in Brian Thomas. So there's a couple wide receivers that I look to and say, okay, I could see a skill set which Joe could probably draw the best out of you with. And again, if you want to maximize the player, making an uncomfortable decision a year too early is probably because what do? You tag Higgins again next year and then trade him? Or you're just going to let him walk and hope that you can recoup a third round pick in compensatory formula if he stays healthy and doesn't get hurt the following year, and then you're getting compensation in 2026 for moving on from T. Higgins. It's like if you know you're going to move on, this is a great year to need a wide receiver, and you can get a really good pick.
I think really highly of Joe Burrow. I really, really do. And I'd even call myself a Joe Burrow fan. Sorry, Bills Mafia. I really like Joe Burrow. Is there a part of you that looks at this through the lens of Joe Burrow and says, man, okay, welcome back from the injury. No more T. Higgins, no more Tyler Boyd, no more Jonah Williams. Your tight end room is completely new, and see you later, Brian Callahan, right? That's a lot. That's a lot of infrastructure, meaningful infrastructure that would be very different very quickly around Cincinnati as they still have to find out some answers on the defensive side of the football.
Well,
so
the good news is Cincinnati starts every year 1-3 anyway.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And then we get a little, oh, maybe the AFC landscape is different. Well, as long as Joe Burrow figures it out. Yeah, here they come. Yeah, they get hot. All right. We got one more player to talk about, a quarterback, Justin Fields, starting to feel really real on that front as well. So we're going to break that down here, and be sure to stick with us. Passion, drive, and patience, what brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
The Chicago Bears would like to make a decision in the near future with their quarterback, Justin Fields.
Yeah. Well, so this has been, man, we've been talking about this for months, right? Everyone's been talking about this for months, but now we're here. And the Bears have to make a choice here. And from what I understand, this is a very polarizing conversation in Chicagoland.
It always is.
Yeah. And so I know that it's very split, and I think you're very aware of the dynamics on both sides of this. You have the number one pick. You have the opportunity to pick one of these quarterbacks, and surely, I mean, it feels like 3 are going to go in the top 5, 4 in the top 10. Like, that feels like that's going to happen. And are you going to stick with Justin Fields or reset the money? That's what they're considering.
So let's remove emotion from this conversation.
Can I, before we remove emotion, can we acknowledge that DJ Moore has come out and publicly stated none of these quarterbacks would be as good as Justin Fields? Like, it feels like there's been other players on the team as well. Like, your locker room is being pretty vocal about wanting to continue with Justin Fields.
I understand that. But it's not just the decision to continue with Justin Fields. You have a financial decision to make that has big time implications for Chicago. You're a team. So let's is it better to have a quarterback on a rookie contract for 1 season or 4 seasons?
In a vacuum, 4 seasons.
Right. And that's what we're doing. We're just going to state some facts, right? Has Justin Fields been able to stay healthy as a quarterback throughout a full 16-game season or 17-game season? And I understand the Chicago Bears fans are going to hear this. Kyle, you're a Dolphins fan. Tua gets hurt all the time too. Okay, like, if that's going to make you feel better, go ahead and say it.
Don't you love how people qualify your ability to talk about other teams based on what happens with the one? It's the dumbest thing going. Yeah, super silly.
So fact or fiction, and I'm, uniquely qualified to talk about a team that has done a quarterback a great disservice by what they put around them for several seasons and playing through injury and underperforming, right? The difference is Miami didn't have the number 1 overall pick. You get your choice with 3 very different skill sets. So has Justin Fields been able to stay healthy through 3 seasons?
No.
Has Justin Fields thrown for 3,000 yards a single time?
No.
Okay.
Has any Chicago Bears quarterback ever thrown for 3,000?
None for 4,000, right?
Never for 4,000.
You and I lapped that stuff up last summer. We said Justin Fields going to double his career passing total, throw 1,000 yards. So, shame on us.
Oh, was that you impersonating me or you there? I think that was more you.
All of the objective, you had some lofty.
No, I know, but I was more about the impersonation, not the
all of the objective outlook suggests that you as an organization would greatly benefit from resetting at that position and not making a significant financial commitment to a player through much of it is no fault of his own, but regardless, a player who has underperformed since arriving in Chicago.
I don't disagree with anything that you said, and my nudge is probably that side of the equation. The one thing that we didn't talk about within your kind of like put it out there moment there was we didn't talk about the quarterbacks available. And I know that they're going to go early. I'm not in love with these quarterbacks, man. I'm really not. And so I think that's an important layer to it. Are the Chicago Bears in love with one of these quarterbacks? That's the question they have to ask themselves. I think that's more important than anything that you just brought up. Because you're not going to pick a guy number 1 overall that you don't love, right? You shouldn't.
Correct. But if you can't fall in love with one of these guys, no matter what your vision is for what you want to do, I don't know what to tell you.
Because the reality is 40% of the top 10 is going to fall in love with one of these guys enough to make them the future face of their franchise.
Right. And there will be
and
one.
Boy, you better not be wrong. You better not pass. Right.
And you know what? That's another thing entirely, because another team might be able to provide the player what he needs to be successful that Chicago would not have the infrastructure from coaching and personnel and style of play to do. But if you passed on a quarterback or if you traded out of that spot and that player hits, boy, rest assured, all y'all getting fired.
And you don't like, that's the difference. It's not like you made a move to go get a quarterback. Like you had the number 1 pick, and not even because you earned it, because another team did that. You happen to have the first round pick.
Fleeced another team.
Do you feel like the one thing that they can't do is trade back from one and then pick a quarterback?
Yes.
That just seems goofy to me.
Yes. You're already playing with house money because it was not your pick in the first place. So, I don't know. Assume that the 3 top wide receivers are gone and you want to draft a wide receiver to go with DJ Moore at 9. Trade back from 9. You're still trading out of a top 10 pick.
The Fields team is always Atlanta, right? Like it's always Atlanta. Is there another team that we should be thinking about?
Pittsburgh?
Yeah, we should. I just don't know if they're going to do that.
They said they were going to bring in competition for Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, it's Ryan Tannehill. Guaranteed.
It doesn't have to be.
Oh, but sir, we know how this goes. It's Arthur Smith. It doesn't
have to be.
Right. It doesn't have to be. Logan Woodside, Arthur Smith, Ryan Tannehill, Kenny Pickett. There's your quarterback room. There's your quarterback room.
No Mason Rudolph, I see.
Yeah. No Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph can go somewhere else. I don't know, man. Who else should be in this conversation?
Maybe the Raiders.
Right. I think the Raiders make a lot of sense, especially they've come out and said Devontae Adams is a Raider. Not sure if you should believe that or not. That's what I would say. If I was trying to leverage my chance to send him to the Jets, I'd certainly come out and say that he's a Raider.
The New England Patriots.
Yeah. I think that's a good call out. Pick they got 3, 34, 68, 104.
38 and 104. Be done with it.
You mean 34 and 104?
34 and 104. Be done with it.
And then pick Marvin Harrison Jr. and see if you can figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I think Fields is going. I think he's going to go.
Yep, and probably in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, and for all the reasons that you brought up, but also there's this one. Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus didn't bring Justin Fields to Chicago, and we know what regimes do. They go down with their guys. They're not going down with somebody else's guy.
Yep. So there you have it. Kyle Crabbs, Joe Marino, Locked On NFL Scouting. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Make it a great rest of your day. We are out of here. I am off to the combine. We got more podium stuff today. I actually think there's some edge rushers on the podium as we speak, so I got a boogie. See ya.